since 1971.
As far as I'm concerned, that's the best band that's ever come out of Michigan. Savage Grace, all along the Watchtower. And this is WRIF Detroit. Officially, it's about 10 o'clock.
The home of rock and roll throughout the 70s and into the 80s.
A beautiful 74 rock and roll over degrees in Detroit City.
Detroit's only real rock and roll radio station in the decade of the 90s.
Well, that's it for me, Arthur P. Thanks for letting me come inside your rock and roll radios. Here's Ann Carlini to complain about how I yell at her.
You were yelling at me.
I was not yelling at you.
You were too.
I was not!
For nearly 50 years, we are, have been, and continue to be 101 WRIF.
You have a remarkable mom.
WRIF is a remarkable radio station.
Baby.
Welcome to the podcast, The History of WRIF. My name is Mike Staff. I had the pleasure of being a DJ on the RIF for 14 years, from 1992 to 2006. And in this podcast, we're going to be talking to the personalities and the influencers that made WRIF what it is. And there certainly is not a bigger personality, anyone who influenced RIF more, whose fingerprints are all over it more than Arthur P.
More than you know.
More than I know. Thank you for doing this, Arthur.
Lots of DNA over there.
It's still there.
In many different locations.
You've made such a unique mark, not only on the RIF, not only on Detroit, but on rock and roll, on the art, no pun intended, of rock and roll. When you think about...
Oh, we did have the Art Fest, so there you go.
But that was much later, after you got your rhythm and you had your rhythm on this thing. But Art, I mean, when I think about the personality that you brought to RIF and how every subsequent DJ kind of like fed off that type of rock and roll vibe. But then there's Detroit Rock City, and you not only personified Detroit Rock City, but you contributed to the legend of Detroit Rock City because you were complicit in a lot of those stories that made the whole country know how badass Detroit is from a rock and roll standpoint. And then to look at it from the standpoint of like so many people that I've talked to told me the same story about how they would travel down to Florida, for example, and they'd be driving home, and they'd turn on the RIF, and they would know they're home when they heard your voice. Like, I don't think there's another radio personality anywhere that people would have that kind of...
I'm behind the scenes, so I don't know any of that stuff.
You must have heard that.
Well, what's that Roger Daltrey mentioned when he was driving from Canada for a Who concert. He was with his promoter. And he said, turn that station on with a guy with a voice, Arthur, whatever his name is.
He knew.
And so he turned it on, and he was all happy.
Isn't that awesome?
And I never met Roger Daltrey, but...
Wow, but he knew who you were.
But he knew me.
Well, you know what's interesting, and I want to hear your stories. I'm going to start with the story about you that I was a part of, which kind of, it's reflective of, like... of how many people knew you around the rock and roll community. Like the Roger Daltrey thing was a good lead into it. I was backstage at I think it was Pine Knob, maybe it was DTE at the time.
It's always been Pine Knob, period.
Yeah,
Sorry, guys.
Always will be to me.
They're not paying my rent.
Godsmack was just getting big, and I was backstage with Sully, and you were in the studio, and I was going to interviewing him, and you and I were talking back and forth off the air, and he could hear he could hear us talking, and he heard me call you Arthur, and he lit up like a firecracker. So, was that Arthur P? And I said, yeah, you know him? He goes, no, I don't know him, but I got to talk to him, man. So you guys had like this conversation. And
we actually met by accident at WRIF. He was walking out of somewhere down the hall for a morning show or something, and he come up and he grabbed me. Arthur P, baby!
That was the first time you met him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had told me that he knew about you because everyone in rock and roll told him when he comes to Detroit, he's got to meet up with Arthur P because you're the badass of rock and roll in Detroit.
It was a quick, in and out. I didn't even think about taking him in the studio because I don't think that fast. Right. If they want to come in, they come in.
Sure. So we have a lot to cover over the years. Let's just start from the beginning. You were born in Honolulu.
Born a poor white child.
How long did you live in Hawaii?
I lived in Hawaii just for a few years. And my father, at the end of the war, my father got a job in San Francisco. He was a colonel in the Army. The war was over. He retired, got a really nice job in San Francisco, and we lived there in the San Francisco Bay Area from, 48 or... Anyway, I don't remember because I was that young to remember what days were. And from 48 till I was there till 68. And in the meantime, I was in the service for 6 years.
So you graduated high school out of San Francisco?
Sort of.
Sort of graduated.
I went to 4 different high schools.
You did?
A lot of times the credits parochial credits that weren't public school credits, and public school credits were in parochial school, and I just made a mess of it. And after 4 years in 4 different high schools, I just said, I'm as good as graduated. I know as much as everybody else. I don't need a diploma.
So you didn't get a diploma?
No.
Isn't that something?
I waited until I was 18. I went to a community college in California. You passed the GED, and I aced the GED, the SATs. I was right up there over the top, and went to school for 3 weeks, but I never went to class. And I tried to get to class, and he said, you've been withdrawn. Went and saw the dean. He says, you can come back next semester if you want to, but not this semester. You're done. I said, oh, my God, my father's going to kill me. So I went down to the Air Force Marine recruiters in San Rafael, California, and I said, I got to go. And today's the day. It's not tomorrow. It's not next month. It's now. And the Air Force guy said, we can't take you now. Our quota's full. So the Marine says, we'll take you. So I went across the hall of the Marine Corps, and then the Air Force guys came over and literally had a tug of war with me, and the Air Force guys won.
So you're in the Air Force for how many years?
4 years active duty, 2 years reserves.
Wow. And what years was that?
62 to 66 active, and 66 to 68 reserves.
Wow. So Vietnam was just starting in that time?
Vietnam was literally, I kept volunteering for Vietnam because it was a good place to have sex. And it was cheap. And I went to Japan a couple of times. Those stories will remain untold. Censored. And anyway, they thought I was crazy. And when I had 6 months left to go, they said Vietnam was really hot. People were dying. And the bodies were coming through the base that I was stationed at. And I just said, I have first right of refusal. I only have 6 months left. They said, well, it's only temporary duty. I said, a friend of mine went there for 45 days, and that was a year and a half ago, and he's not back yet.
Right.
Not me.
So you got out after
I got out of the Vietnam thing, which was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. And then what did you do right after that?
And I just roamed around Northern California playing in different bands. I played drums and, learned about LSD and marijuana and chasing girls and patchouli oil and Haight-Ashbury and
this is in the thick of it all, right?
Oh, yeah, right in the beginning.
7. Wow.
Before the idiots came.
Right, and so you were in a band that actually went on tour, right? Didn't you go on tour?
Yeah, we had a band called The Vegetables that was popular in California, and we did a date or two with Mamas and Papas, and then it fell apart. And the rest is history. Here I am. Well, radio was calling my name.
Right. So did you always know you wanted to be in radio?
Never had one inkling of desire to be on the radio.
Did you always have a deep voice, like when you were younger growing up?
But when I was 11 or 12, it came on. It was like, I'd sit in the back of the class and I wouldn't answer any questions. Like whenever I did, the whole class cracked up. They're all like, hi, how you doing? I'm going, I'm fine, Arthur. And even cracked the teachers, I was saying.
So people probably told you all the time, though, hey, man, you should be on the radio?
My stepmother dropped the seed and the tree grew. She says, you should be an all-night disc jockey on a jazz station. You're perfect. You're smart. You're funny. You know the music. And that's what you should do. And I said, that's not what I want to do.
Right. I want to be a rocker.
I want to be on a rock station.
Right. So you were playing drums. You're partying a lot. You were part of the culture and everything that was going on in the late '60s in San Francisco. And then how did you get into radio? What happened?
I heard a commercial on the radio while I was driving with my mom in a car in San Francisco for some reason. We didn't get along. I don't know why I was in her car. Anyway, the commercial came on. And I said, "Take me over to the NBC building, Mom." Went over there, walked in there, had the long hair and the beard, and it probably smelled like patchouli oil. And I went up to the offices, and they said, well, we're all filled up. You have to come back next year. And I said, now or never, stubborn as I am. And they said, well, take the test. And I did a vocabulary test, spelling test, on-camera test, all that stuff. And they just said, we're taking you right now. And they aced everything.
I see a pattern here.
No fear.
You were kind of impulsive getting into the military, impulsive, like, I'm going to do this now. That's kind of the way that you attack life, isn't it?
When it's time.
Yeah.
It's just, sometimes, when I was married 4 times, it wasn't right. But it seemed like a good
the fifth time's
seemed like a good idea at the
time. So you go to broadcasting school. You learn to be a DJ.
Yeah, I was valedictorian in the class.
Valedictorian.
I got a job in Arizona, which was the worst job ever. Quit that after 3 weeks and went to Washington State near Spokane and worked there for a couple of months, and then I had met this girl from Howell when I was going to school in San Francisco, and we were pen pals, and she says, you got to come to Howell, man, and just visit, So I did for Christmas and New Year's, and we hooked up, and we came back, and she kept sending letters saying, the local radio station would really love to have you, WHMI. And I said, okay. So I gave them a tape, and they said, you're good as in. Just be here by February 1st. So I gave my notice in Washington State, drove my car all the way across the country, and the job wasn't available.
Oh, no.
Some guy had appendectomy or appendicitis or something, and they had to fill the void. So I had to do something, so I worked in a lumber yard for the first winter I was in Michigan, January, February, and March. Then in April, I got offered a job as a test car driver at the GM Proving Grounds.
Wow, cool.
Which was the most awesome job ever.
I bet.
And 8 days into that job, I get a call from WHMI. And they say, we can only pay you $80 a week. And I was making well over 100, and with benefits with GM. And anyway, plus I married a woman that had 4 kids. So I had a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah.
So I took the job on the radio station and said, well, let's just throw the coin up in the air and see where it lands.
And how long were you at WHMI?
6 months.
And then Ann Arbor called?
Yeah, I got a job offer as a news director. I said, sure, I'm one of those. Got to wear a suit and tie. I said, no problem.
Wow.
Then I wormed my way into being the newscaster, and then I wound up being the morning guy, the magic rooster, with the prestidigitating cock. And they got tired of my antics after a few weeks of that, doing that crap, and they moved me on middays from 9 to noon. So I called myself Chicken Little. The sky is falling. Then I got a call from Dick Kernan on-air call saying, heard you're looking for a job in Detroit. Keep hearing your name. Come do an interview. So I showed up.
And he was at WXYZ.
WXYZ FM, still 101.1.
Yeah.
They hired me on the spot.
Coming up.
All the stations that came alive all died.
Right.
RIF still survived. We're like a cockroach and Keith Richards. The end of the world, we're still going to be around.
The history of WRIF.
It's quitting time!
Legendary personalities from Detroit's iconic WRIF. With Mike Staff and our special guest, Arthur Penhallow.
I had read, Art, and I know we've talked about this before. You had another name you went by on the radio.
Cicero Grimes. That was Ann Arbor.
Oh, that was Ann Arbor?
Yeah, that's when I really went rock.
Now, when you were in Howell, did you use your real name?
Yeah.
What made you not use your real name in Ann Arbor?
They wanted me to be a CKLW type, like a Brian Kelly.
I see.
2020 News. And they said, you have to come up with another name because, I said, I was watching a movie called Hombre with Richard Boone, and the bad guy was called Cicero Grimes. He was a bad dude with a cool first name, Cicero. So I came in and they made jingles for Cicero Grimes.
That's awesome.
And about a month later, I got the job offer from RIF or XYZ.
Was there any thought of using Cicero Grimes on WXYZ? You want to use your real name?
That was buried.
Yeah, so Dick Kernan, who has been with Specs Howard for a long time, forever, and now he's the vice president, and he's got a great reputation in Detroit and nationally because so many people have kind of leaned in on his mentorship. But at that point, he was in radio for quite some time, and he was the program director of WXYZ. Now, when you took that job, did you know they were getting ready to flip the call letters and everything?
I don't think they knew either.
They didn't. Was it the same format?
I had one live DJ, and that was me.
That was you.
The rest was all tapes from around the country from other ABC-owned and operated stations, like in L.A., San Francisco, New York, Chicago. Anyway, so I was a live voice from Detroit. And the ratings, they were never in the ratings. As soon as I took the job, the ratings went up.
That's interesting.
In my day part. So they started adding, they added Jerry Lubin, which is a good ad, and then Hank Malone doing mornings, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And by 1971, we had a full cast of bad boys and girls.
And the format before you flipped to WRIF was still a rock, kind of a progressive rock.
Yeah, it was like play what you want.
Play whatever you wanted.
Yeah,
so it could be jazz, it could be blues, it could be everything.
I played Zubin Mehta, you know, and he was a classical conductor, and he has some great music. I do also Sprach Zarathustra at 5 o'clock for your drive home. Here's 20 minutes of shit you never want to hear again.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I think we should paint the picture for the listeners. Back then in radio in the late 60s, early 70s, AM was the rage.
Oh, yeah.
And FM was kind of almost like the bastard stepchild of the AM station. So radio stations that had both frequencies would often just simulcast whatever they had on AM on their FM. So WXYZ, the ABC station, was doing something different. Said, you guys can just go ahead and do whatever you wanted.
The FM.
The FM.
The AM guys got paid. The FM guys got paid way less.
Well, and the facilities were a lot different, too. Talk about the old WRIF.
Well, we were initially in the big building in a little crammed studio for a year, and then they put trailers on the west side of the property, and they moved all the office space and everything there. So we became autonomous in the trailers, and we were in the trailers from 72 till 79. They built us a building.
Back in the very early days, though, you had some momentum because you're building the air staff on WXYZ, and then it flips over to WRIF, and now you guys are
everybody quit but me.
Oh, really?
They didn't want me on the radio anymore because I wasn't part of their clan, their clique.
Huh.
So they all resigned or were fired, every single one of them.
Wow.
And I cut my hair and shaved my beard, and I was ready to go wherever I had to go. But they kept me.
Crazy.
Which is pretty cool.
Wow. And then they started to build the air staff again.
Yeah, with a bunch of people I didn't know. Pat St. John was the biggest name that they put on the air, and then Mike Stevens. And
Pat St. John's in New York City and been for a long time.
He's actually in San Diego now. He's on Sirius XM.
It's on Sirius, yeah. And the format, though, let's just talk about the musical format back then, because it was, like you said, it was so much variety. But we're talking 72, right? So
that's when the format started getting a little tighter.
It started to get tighter because Lee Abrams came in, and he had this idea of making more of a
19-year-old wonderkind.
And what was it about Lee Abrams that was so different? What did he bring to the table?
Excitement. That's about it. He was building his resume to get the hell out of Detroit at the same time.
And he had some focus, though, too. He took top 40 principles, right, and said, hey, let's just play. Like half the format was basically like this top 40 popular stuff, and then the other
rock,
half,
not pop,
right?
You know, but and then there was the obvious other stuff. The Van Morrison, Bob Seger, the whatever Beatles, Stones.
I saw some sample hours though, and it could be like Zeppelin and Black Sabbath into KC and the Sunshine Band.
Not on my show. I would do Led Zeppelin into Joni Mitchell, but I would pause and say riff, and then go in there and he says, you're the only one that can get away with that because that's not a segue to be had. I love Joni Mitchell, though, you know.
And the landscape of Detroit at that time, so we had WABX, which was a progressive rock station.
Yeah, they were the original.
The original, yeah.
WKNR-FM, W4-FM, and XYZ/WRIF. FM.
So throughout the 70s, there was the competition between the three.
WLLZ, and then there was all the stations that came alive all died.
Right.
RIF still survived.
Yep, they came.
We're like a cockroach and Keith Richards. The end of the world, we're still going to be around.
But so if we look at the 70s, we got ABX and W4 that we're kind of competing against at the time.
Pretty much, yeah.
And, when I look at the first heyday of RIF, now tell me if I'm wrong, but to me I look at like about 1978. 76?
We got an 8-share.
You got an 8-share.
I got a 10 in the afternoon.
That's incredible.
I crushed CKLW. And that's all I wanted to do.
Right.
Put rock and roll back on the map. Well, I had no animosity towards CKLW. Their time was gone, done. Still friends with some of the DJs back then.
But the CKLW was the big powerhouse.
The Big 8.
It was, yeah, for sure. So in 76, Tom Bender was the program director?
I don't know when he became program director. We had so many that boom, 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 boom. I know he was a program director in 79 or 78. And there was other guys before him. And my memory is like, I block all that crap out.
Right. So the lineup, I know in 78, Bender brought over JJ and the Morning Crew, or was that W4? And he kind of did this pretty quick, if I'm not mistaken. He brought Ken Calvert over, who was also on W4, but he was on ABX as well.
He was actually a Columbia record rep at the time.
First.
But he had been on the air
At both
prior
those
to
stations.
that,
Yeah.
Brought him over, and Karen Savelli. And,
From ABX.
Yeah.
So that was like the dream team air staff with JJ in the morning crew in the morning, Calvert in middays, you in afternoons, and Karen Savelli at night. That was like the beginning to...
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So what was it about JJ that was so different back then? Because
JJ was very different. He wanted all the attention. George mostly did. And I said, be my guest. You can have all the attention you want. I'm fine just the way I am.
Right.
I get enough attention that I don't want.
Right.
It's all yours now.
So
but I still got the attention.
Well, so George Bear, he's the voice of Dick the Bruiser,
Right, and everybody else.
George Swell and all those voices. Yeah.
Al Kaline.
But that morning show really, it really hit, and it resonated in Detroit. Why do you think that was?
It was big time.
What do you think it was about that morning show that was
different?
It was different from everything else that was going on.
Yeah.
And then you had Calvert in middays. Calvert was a really unique personality.
He was the best midday guy in America.
No
question. I don't know why he ever got out. He wanted to be a morning guy, which he became. He became an afternoon guy at Wheels, and then became a morning guy at RIF and all over the place. But if he just stayed middays, he'd have owned that plot of land forever.
Yeah. So personable.
Absolutely. And smart and funny.
Funny, yeah.
And creative.
Yeah, no doubt. You know, I think about the crossovers that you guys used to have. And for our listeners, what a crossover is when Ken would be on middays from say 10 to 2. At 2 o'clock, Arthur would be coming in to take over, and Ken and Art would just banter back and forth. But
except on Fridays.
When
my Samoan manservants would carry me in.
Samoan manservants.
That's kind of like politically incorrect now, but back then it was kind of funny.
It was funny, but it was like theater of the mind is what that was. And you'd paint this picture of
music in the background, like, ugh. Here he comes, coming down the hall.
And the visual is like you're being carried by these guys.
Exactly, in a chair.
In a
throne.
Chair. Right, with a throne.
and then I would kick the door open and then fall on the ground saying, hey, hey. And then we'd go on and on and on. It was nothing but fun.
Now, were those planned? Did you guys talk about that? Or is it just...
No, he just did it, and I acted... as I acted, as I always have acted.
Those were so
you never knew
much
what
fun.
You were going to get.
Never. But they were so much fun.
I'd bring my razors and stuff in my briefcase and stuff, and he'd be doing crossover, and I'd turn, bzzz, he said, what are you doing? I says, I'm trying out my new vibrator. What do you think I'm doing? I think it needs to be dosed in alcohol, though.
Coming up.
Whenever I got the feeling.
Whenever you got it.
Whenever a song turned me on, I come out. It was like, it was 101, WRIF, baby. And then I kept expounding upon that with, baby. And make it a little more normal, 21st century or whatever.
The history of WRIF.
This car, this weather, I can't take it anymore. It's Maui time.
Legendary personalities from Detroit's iconic WRIF. With Mike Staff and our special guest, Arthur Penhallow.
Getting back to the early days, ABC had a cluster of FM rock stations. And their slogan was Detroit's best rock, or LA's best rock, or New York's best rock. And at RIF, it was Detroit's best rock. But as the story goes, you just came out of something and you said, the home of rock and roll.
The home of rock and roll. Got that from Bob Seger.
Right. Off Live Bullet, because he said that.
Well, I got from concerts too,
Sure. So
and then the baby thing came out of a Jay Giles song, and that kind of stuck.
Kind of, yeah.
A million T-shirts later.
So we'll definitely get to Baby. Let's stick with the home of rock and roll for a second, because you came out of...
Then they wanted everybody else on the station to do it. So Karen was trying to do it. The home, it wasn't natural for any of them to do it. So I was stuck. Just like kick-ass rock and roll, you know?
Right, but it stuck, and then other ABC stations started using the home of rock and roll, and the next thing you knew, there's stations all over the country.
Yeah, they were trying to do the baby thing at the same time, but no, it didn't work for them. It wasn't natural.
Right, it wasn't them. Wasn't them.
You got to feel it.
So then Baby was something else. You just kind of came out. It was impulsive right in the moment.
It was like 1976, somewhere around there, out of Southside Shuffle. And Peter was doing his crazy Peter stuff. It was live. Baby, baby. And I came out and did the baby. I was in a bar one night. I didn't know what was happening. And this guy introduced me to his girlfriend. This is Art Penhallow. And she says, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. And he says, he's the guy that says baby on the radio. She says, oh, yeah, that's great. So I came back and told Tom Bender that we needed to get baby bumper stickers. And Fred Jacobs told him, yeah. He said, okay, you mentioned it 2 times or 3 times on the radio to send a self-addressed stamped envelope to WRIF, and we will send you a free baby bumper sticker. 10,000 requests.
Unbelievable.
Boom. And they kept on coming.
That is crazy. Yeah. Well, that's interesting, too.
At least that's my memory.
Well, the whole RIF bumper sticker thing is part of the RIF culture. It's part of the brand, of course. Over 700 band names and slogans and everything else have been on the big oval RIF bumper sticker. But back then, it was just the call letters like every other radio station. So for you to
it was square initially, but it had the oval inside it.
Okay.
And then they decided to get real, and they got it right.
And
sort of.
So when you said, hey, man, let's do baby bumper stickers, that was kind of a novel idea because it's like, wait, we don't put slogans on bumper stickers.
Exactly.
And then as the story goes, Fred Jacobs and Tom Bender, Fred Jacobs was an early PD of RIF, went on to be...
He went after Tom.
Yep. Fred was right after Tom. Yeah, okay. And they did some research with a group, and Fred and Tom were very research heavy, and they held up the oval with nothing on it, and everyone knew it was WRIF because those bumper stickers were so cool.
And then everybody else in town started putting their own names on it. We had it trademarked. The churches were putting Jesus on it, and we put the kick-ass on it until the neo-Nazis started wearing them to their events, put them on their shields. I said, we're not making kick-ass bumper stickers anymore. There's got to be rock and roll, man. We're not here to hurt the world.
So the kick-ass stuff was just something, again, you just came
Only
up
I was allowed to do that.
Oh, okay.
The home of kick-ass rock and roll.
That's so awesome. I remember having a T-shirt that said kick-ass on it in high school. It was awesome.
I think I have 1 T-shirt left from WRIF. 1. Give everything else away.
One of the old ones.
Bumper stickers, everything.
Oh, God.
People ask me for stuff. I said, I'm not Mr. Memento, you know?
I get that. So just with the baby, one thing. So you came out of this Jay Giles song with Baby, and then did you just start like saying it again?
Whenever I got the feeling.
Whenever you got it.
Whenever a song turned me on, I come out. It was like, it was 101, WRIF, baby. And then I kept expounding upon that with, baby. And make it a little more normal, 21st century or whatever. There
is not a phrase that resonates like baby. That is
you can't use it without feeling. That was the whole deal. That's why nobody else could do it.
And it's synonymous with you, with Detroit, with WRIF. And so the radio station was asking other DJs to try to say baby, and it just didn't fly.
No, I think it was the company ABC was trying to get other people from other cities to try, LA or Chicago or whatever, and they couldn't.
And they didn't even know what it was.
Well, they didn't feel it.
Right.
If you don't feel it, peel it.
So alongside the great music that RIF had, this great lineup, it had great advertising and great marketing. And around that 1978 time...
Right there, Rodney
Dangerfield. What was that?
He did a couple of commercials for WRIF.
Was that before or after The Remarkable Mouth?
It was after The Remarkable Mouth. She was the one that put it on the map, the really cool stuff. And then Dick the Bruiser, the real Dick the Bruiser.
Oh, yeah.
Was an awesome commercial. And he came up to me and he goes, Arthur Penhallow, right? And he says, I always thought Arthur Penhallow was a band from England.
Interesting.
I said, well, maybe it is. I don't know.
Those the Remarkable Mouth commercial really resonated, and RIF played the shit out of it because it was owned by ABC, which owned a TV station, and they would just play it nonstop.
And they probably did it for all their own stations.
Right. Now, could you feel the momentum coming?
Oh, yeah.
From that? It was like nothing you'd seen before in radio?
Well, I never seen anything before in radio.
Oh, that's true.
So everything was new.
Right.
But it was good new.
Right.
Great new.
Yeah. That's so fun.
Yeah.
Now, in addition to that, WRIF is known for its promotions. And one of the best is Maui Time.
Maui Time. 1985, I think we started that.
That was the first time, 85.
Yeah, and it was this car wouldn't start. I can't take it. I know. It's Maui Time. And there was a legitimate blizzard going on that day we did it. And the car wouldn't start. It was an old Gremlin.
Didn't you end up burying that Gremlin or something?
Yeah, we did. We did. In the backyard over by the trailers.
So whose idea was Maui Time?
That was not my idea, but the idea came from me going there twice a year. I was going all the time, and I was always talking about it. Here today, going to Maui. Plus, I got married over there, and it was one of my wives. And anyway, it was because I was experienced. My dad was born in Maui. My grandfather and great-grandfather are all born there on Maui. So I was a perfect choice to take a bunch of winners to Maui.
And of course, you weren't going to say no to a free vacation like that.
I was so geeked, it was unbelievable.
And was the plan to do it every year, or you did the first one and it was just so successful?
Yeah, it was so successful ratings-wise. It boosted the numbers huge. That's all they're into is the bottom line. And Maui Time increased their bottom line like crazy.
Well, when you start talking about Maui and Detroit in February, of course, that's going to resonate.
Yeah.
I remember being in high school. I must have been, if it started in 85, I must have been a junior in high school. I remember having a Walkman on, listening to you, waiting for you to hear, or for you to yell, it's Maui Time. I remember running down to the payphones and putting in quarters, trying to call the win.
If you're the 10th caller, and it went all the way up to 30th or something.
How many years did you do that?
I think 24.
Wow. 24 straight years.
The last one was 2008, so that's 23.
Get back to Maui, though, because there's got to be some really good stories for Maui. So when you start out, like how many guests or winners went?
The most that ever went was, I forget what year it was 100 total people.
Oh, my.
Winners were, I think, 25 plus one, that's 50. Me plus one, that's 52. And then the salespeople at WRIF, if they sold a certain amount of commercial time regarding WRIF and Maui Time, then they got to go along with their client. So we had the clients, we had the salespeople, we had the promotion people, and we had me. It was
the center, the ringleader.
I just did what I wanted to do.
Well, when you have a group like that, though, it's Maui Time. It's party time. I mean,
some of these guys are a little out of control, but
some of these guys, like you weren't one of them.
I wasn't chaperoning.
Right, of course not. You're probably being chaperoned once in a while.
I was trying to be in the shadows.
And you'd hang out with the listeners, and you guys would have dinners together, and you guys would just.
They even put the foot of the bill for a luau and for a dinner with good wine and everything when WRIF was like flying high.
Yeah.
And not anymore. I mean, after that, it was just like 15 winners and me and the engineers go over early. I went over early with them, and it just became an afterthought to the new owners,
Yeah. Did you guys always stay at the same hotel?
No.
Did you get kicked out of the hotel?
We stayed at 4 different hotels.
Okay. They just didn't watch you anymore?
Well, the first one was not right. The second one, we kept getting in trouble from the local gendarmes. The third one basically bought us to come there, gave me the presidential suite.
Nice.
And I got a bedroom over here, and 1,000 feet over there is another bedroom, and giant grand piano and all this fancy art. That wasn't me. And so we did that for a year, and then the Hyatt Regency came to the plate, and they were the best. So my most memorable times there are the Maui Marriott, which then became timeshares, and the Hyatt Regency, which was cool. Everybody, from the general manager all the way down to the bartenders, were all cool.
Now, you would broadcast from there. And
Some years I didn't even broadcast.
You didn't?
Yeah,
I thought you did it every year.
Well,
I bet you
I'd do a phoner or something.
Did you prefer it when you weren't? Because it was 8 a.m.
Oh, yeah, because I was nursing my second hangover by then. It was like...
I'd be running the board for you sometimes, or you would just be hurting. 3 o'clock in Detroit, but 8 a.m. in Maui. That's a different beast.
Help me.
Ted Nugent went to Maui Time once.
A few times.
Any stories about Ted in Maui?
Says he doesn't drink. But when he does, he dances on top of tables. End of story.
Would he hunt when he went there?
Yeah, he would go to Molokai and go hunting.
Yeah, okay. And he would hang out with people, and it was just he'd
do it. I had dinner with him a few times when he was there because we were friends from before.
Sure.
And before he was like hugely famous, I was friends with him from Ann Arbor Radio, for God's sake.
Wow.
You know? Anyway, he was there. We had fun.
You've been friends with obviously a lot of people throughout the years. It's well known you've had a great friendship with Bob Seger for a long time. Do you remember when you met Bob?
Yeah, he was at a record promotion party in Ann Arbor. I forget the name of the record. It might have been Noah, 1969. And he had a page boy haircut. And he was sitting on the floor with his wife then. And it wasn't, he was just like, hi, everybody. So it wasn't like. And
was he was just starting to get a little momentum in the.
Well, he had momentum in '68 back in '72, and or whatever that song was. But it couldn't have been back in '70. Ramblin' Gamblin' Man, that's what it was.
Okay.
That was a hit out in California when I was there. Same with Mitch Ryder's, all their songs. I met all these guys and just gelled with them over the years. Johnny B, Mitch, Jim McCarty. Yeah, it's been awesome.
It's amazing. And MC5.
Yeah, I knew the lead singer pretty well after the fact that the MC5 kind of disbanded.
Yeah.
And he died of a heart attack way before his time.
Yeah, he was, the MC5 was just such an influential band.
They are now.
Yeah.
Funny.
That's interesting, too.
It's funny.
Yeah, it is. And then a band like Alice Cooper, he wasn't from Detroit. But
he was from Detroit. He was from the Detroit area. He was born and raised in somewhere in the Detroit area.
Oh, I thought he was born and raised in Phoenix, but he got...
No, then he moved out.
Oh, okay. Because Detroit understood it and got it.
Yeah, we did a live concert from the Rooster Tail with him, free, and it was a madhouse. It was live on the air.
Wow.
We did that with Steve Miller and some other bands that were like hot at the time in the very early 70s.
And the Rooster Tail was the place.
It was. They liked us, The Shanahan family liked us, so we got things done, and we helped put them back on the map because they were like, hit and miss.
Yeah, for a long time at least in the '60s, they had a lot of Motown would play there.
Oh yeah,
and
Frankie Valli
if you go backstage, they have pictures of everything that ever happened there. It's really amazing to see it.
Plus, they take care of you when you're there. It's pretty awesome. Even Kid Rock threw his Christmas parties in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kid Rock's another one. When did you first meet him?
Oh, I met him at Alto's house.
Really?
After Bot with the Bot came out, and we had a major conversation and connection, etc. And then we became friends. And, I went to his house, he came to my house, blah, blah, blah. And we did stuff that we're not going to talk about.
And he obviously knew you.
Oh, yeah. He called me the man.
Yeah.
I was his illegitimate father, or he was my illegitimate son. I got him on tape saying that somewhere.
It's cool with, you think about Kid Rock's story because he was, obviously I always listened to you, a huge Bob Seger fan. And for a guy like him to be able to become really good friends with you guys, really cool.
Well, they both became managed by Punch, too.
Right.
And my son was part of the management teams.
Yeah.
So it was my family, too.
It was. And you've had a long-term relationship with Punch and Bob Seger going...
50 years.
Yeah, 50 years.
There's been a decade of break here and there. But, I have my life, he has his life, He had kids to raise, and I had kids to make.
You're right. So when Bob
over 21, of course.
So when Bob became a huge star. He always lived in Detroit.
In the Detroit area.
In the Detroit area.
He did it, and he was living in a penthouse apartment in Hollywood. He called me. He said, "You got to come out here, man. I'm dying out here." So that was short-lived. He's got places all over Michigan now, and Nashville, and Florida. I'm not sure what he's got, but he's got a lot.
And he would do, he does stretches. He just at Pine Knob DTE recently for a whole bunch of shows, but he would always do that. He would do these long stands at Pine Knob when it was Pine Knob.
It still is.
Yeah. Cobo, he would do long stands. Yeah. And those were like big homecomings for him, right?
Yep.
What were those shows like?
where I actually made it to the show. They were awesome, man. I was called the Fifth Bullet because I knew I was really good friends with Chris Campbell and Alto Reed and Bob. So I had my laminate was Silver Bullet band member with the picture of me, my baby picture on the back, and it was like I could bring anybody with me anywhere that wanted to go. It was like licensed to be as cool as Alto Reed, that's pretty cool.
Well, and it's cool to meet somebody like that before they get that kind of fame.
Oh, I used to fly down to Alto's house all the time, and Chris Campbell too. Yeah. I just talked to both of them. I talked to Alto yesterday and talked to Chris today, and he wants to go have dinner or lunch tomorrow, and then invited me to the show on Friday, and I said, I ain't gonna pull the age card too many times, but after last Friday, I can't do another one. He said, second row seats. I said, doesn't matter. I still have to walk up the stairs.
After the show.
Yeah.
Talk about your relationship and friendship with Peter Wolf, Jay Giles, man.
That's gone kind of like faded a little bit because Jay Giles is not around anymore, and I didn't show up to a couple of concerts he thought I was going to show up to, giving me a shout out, and I'm in Bel Air, Michigan, or Torch Lake or somewhere playing golf. And somebody goes, hey, Peter just gave you a shout out. Where are you? I said, playing golf up in Bel Air. Sandy Creek.
You became friends with them back in the 70s.
Yeah. I used to ride to the gigs with them in their own limo, and to the airport. I was like their companion. I was a bad boy companion.
And Detroit was always a big stop for them because Detroit got
Detroit and Boston. They own both towns.
Yeah. I'm going to name a couple of bands. You've told me over the years, Art, so many stories about your rock and roll past. And I always try to encourage you to write a book, and you always tell me you're not going to do it. A lot of these stories were told over Crown Royal.
That's what we call the book Crown.
Exactly. I'm just going to throw out some bands, and you just tell me if you have a story that you can share on this particular podcast.
Okay.
How about, let's start with, how about the Black Crowes?
Eddie Harsh was a really good friend of mine, and he was their keyboard, and he was an official member of the band, which made it nice for me because I was backstage all the time, made friends with the drummer, and there's not really obscure stories to tell other than at about 2 a.m. one night, my phone rang, and it says, we're jumping over your fence, we're jumping in the pool, me and some of the members from the Black Crowes. I'm going, oh man, I just went to sleep. Go jump over the fence. And I was out there, they were out there swimming, and I went back to sleep, and the next day on the radio, I said, well, I had a long night last night. The Black Crowes came over and swam in my pool and left a ring around the pool.
How about Gene Simmons of Kiss?
Gene was pretty private, really, but we had a lot of conversations. I've done 4-hour shows with him and half-hour shows with him. He flew me out to L.A. to do an hour interview promoting Detroit Rock City, the movie. I mean, it was awesome. I got a great... I thought it was just a regular room. It was a suite. Nice. Everything was in white. And it was like in Hollywood, and I had my own car and driver. And we'd go there and we'd argue about who'd bedded the most women. And I said, well, the onus is on you. You have pictures. I don't.
He claims like 10,000.
Yeah, well, guess what? Will Chamberlain claimed 20. That's impossible.
That's a lot. How about Guns N' Roses?
Slash.
Yeah.
Hung out with him. I met him I was doing an appearance somewhere, Southfield or somewhere, and he showed up, hopped in the back of my limo when we were done, and he was hammered. He was smoking a cigarette back there, and the hot ash went right on the carpet and everything. I'm going, oh. Anyway, we went to Trump's, and we were walking around and ran into some other guys that I won't mention, and next thing I know, Slash and his current vocalist for Slash is what
Snake Pit.
Yeah. Did the perp walk upstairs in the Trumps with a couple of hotties. I waited 2 hours for them to come down, and they didn't, so I went outside, got in the limo, and took off. The next day, his record company called and wanted me to pay for all the dancing. It was a $2,500 bill. I'm going, that's ridiculous. He should be getting freebies. But I've seen him since, and he's pretty cool about it. Yeah. I don't remember.
That's a pretty good, safe way of getting through that conversation.
Exactly.
I'm sure it's not the first place like that.
I'm sure there's a lot of other stories better than mine, that's for sure.
How about Aerosmith? You must have crossed.
I had a lot of real good stories. Yeah. When Steven was sober and Joe Perry was out of the band, and the band didn't have a record contract, but they still had a promoter, Nick Karras from DMA, great guy. And they played Kobo, sold out. And I ran into Steven in the hallways, and we were walking around and doing this and the other thing, and my wife was hanging out with Nick, hidden away. He said, what should we do? I said, groupies. So we made a groupie run. Not that we found any, but, you know.
It couldn't have been too hard. He must have been backstage and not out.
Well, we were in a hotel at this time.
Okay.
They were following us. Anyway, end of story.
Joan Jett, you once told me, an interesting story.
Well, I was on stage for her sound check at Pine Knob. I think it was Pine Knob. And I was talking to her manager. His name is Denny, who played bass for Tommy James and the Shondells. We were talking about that, and I said, wait, where is Joan? And all of a sudden, she grabs my shoulders, flips me around, puts her arms around me, gives me a giant body hug, and gives me the best kiss I've ever had in my life.
Joan Jett.
Joan Jett knows how to kiss.
Wow.
And that was the end of that story.
That's awesome. So we've talked about JJ, George Baer talked about Calver a little bit, Karen Savelli. Let's talk about some more of your colleagues and fellow DJs on RIF. I'm just going to rattle off some names. You can just tell me some thoughts that you have about them. Drew, Mike?
Hard to know them because they were like in their own little world.
Yeah, they were. They had their own studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had their own kind of team. And Drew, obviously smart, but he was an introvert.
Introvert, and he was overzealous with his work, which paid off
in spades.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Great guy. Personally, I like him a lot. But
sure.
I just didn't know him.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't really hang like that.
No. He didn't let you get too close.
Yeah. It's interesting to use the word introvert. It was once described to me, an introvert is somebody who gets their energy by being alone. And an extrovert is somebody who gets their energy by being around other people.
And where the hell do I get mine?
Now, so I'm going to peg you as an introvert. You're outgoing.
I would agree.
But you're an introvert.
I'm outgoing because when you're outside your private space, you have to be outgoing.
Right.
Or try to be.
Right.
And patience is not a virtue either, so there's idiots out there. I have a hard time being nice.
Sure.
But I do my best.
Well, and it just it takes energy to be around people, but you like it, you enjoy it, you can be outgoing, but you really get charged. And was that ever difficult for you? Because you are so well known, it's hard for you to go anywhere in Detroit.
It was back then, but not now. I mean, now it's like maybe 1 or 2 people, 3 people, whatever. No big deal.
Yeah. They might not recognize your face, but as soon as you open your mouth, they're going to recognize that voice.
Happens.
Yeah.
That happens. Well, nobody's seen my face in 11 years, so.
You haven't changed.
I'm not much. I'm more relaxed.
So getting back to the RIF air staff over the years, how about Steve Costan?
Good guy. We're so good friends.
Yeah. The kid
Costan.
Costan.
I can tell stories about him, but he would hate me.
Well, he's going to tell stories about you.
Yeah, he might, you know. Just tell him I call them peanuts. Ask him what that means.
I know the story.
You know the story?
Yeah.
Aerosmith gave him the nickname.
I know. And we'll let Steve tell that story if he wants to tell that story. How about Ann Carlini? Ann had a great way of connecting with people.
Yeah, she still does.
Yeah, she still does.
Very outstanding. She's an extrovert.
She is an extrovert. Yeah. She definitely gets her energy from being around people. How about Peter Werby?
Peter Werby's a very cool guy.
He is.
We share a lot of the same likes, but we can't tell what they are. Mostly to do with ancient women.
You know Peter.
Peter's an anarchist, and I've known Peter since the 70s, and he's always been a cool guy.
And he was on RIF like early on.
When I first started there, he was doing a Sunday show.
Night Call. Was it Night Call?
Yeah, so it was something I don't forget. But anyway, you'd interview I remember walking in and bumping into Jane Fonda after she was, Hanoi Jane.
Yeah.
And anyway, he had her for an hour. I wanted her for the next half hour, but they wouldn't let me have her.
How about Meltdown?
Meltdown's a very crazy guy, very loving family guy.
No question.
Extrovert for sure.
Yeah.
But, we all self-impale once in a while, but he seemed to make it. He stayed true to himself and his beliefs and his act, and God bless him. I love Meltdown.
Yeah, definitely. Driven, very pro.
Loves to play hockey.
Yeah, loves to play hockey.
And all the hockey players know him.
They do. Yeah.
They all have his number on their cell phones.
Screaming Scott.
A wonderful human being.
Isn't he, though?
Yeah. Pray for him all the time. Hey!
And there's a guy that absolutely loves his job. He walks in every day, and he feels blessed to be walking into the RIF, and he's not afraid.
He doesn't care what time slot it is either.
No, he doesn't. He's just happy to be there. He deserves it all.
Coming up.
I had a motto, when it ceases to be fun, I'm done. 2 days before my 65th birthday, it ceased to be fun. So I always hoped they'd come back with a 50% offer. But they didn't. It's not a sob story, and there's no hard feelings.
Right.
That was it.
This is the history of WRIF, the podcast.
Riff rocks, baby.
You've had so many awesome opportunities. You've not too many people that play cameos of themselves in movies, where a cameo of themselves is written into the movie. I'm talking about The Upside of Anger.
It was originally just going to be a walk-on, walk-off, and then it became, I had lines to say, it was fun.
This is a feature film starring Kevin Costner.
Joan Allen, Mike Binder.
Yeah. How did you get invited?
Mike Binder and I are way old friends. I've done this since he was 18 years old or younger. And the Binder family is big in Birmingham, Detroit anyway. His dad, Bert, was the coolest guy ever. His brother, Jack, was I can't talk about Jack. Jack was a cool guy, too. Hi, Jack.
And Mike just called you out of the blue and said, hey, man, I got this idea for a character.
He says, can I come to the radio station and just do some video work and see what the workings of a radio station are? I said, sure. He said, I've done it to other stations in town, and you don't mind? I said, you got my personal approval, no matter what the management says. So he showed up with a video camera and did the whole thing. And then he included the script became, the radio station was and is now WRIF, which is pretty cool.
It was way cool.
So he wanted me to make it real by being a walk-on, that's it. And then he put some lines in the movie for me, So
you went out to L.A. to film?
No, I went to London.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had this old MI6 building. I knew MI6 building. It was empty. We had to be out of there in like 5 days because the guys were coming, and these guys are badass. Anyway, they built a studio, and the board was just like the new ones we got back when they built the new building.
Yeah, it looked like it.
And it was great. It was like realistic.
Did you get acting lessons before doing it or anything?
They wouldn't give me my lines before I got there.
They wouldn't give you.
Yeah, because they say I'd probably try to change them, which of course I did.
Well, the line that sticks out to me
I saw the script go flying in the air on more than one occasion. He's here 10 minutes. He's already changing the movie.
When did you find out, Art, that you were going to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
They kept calling in the early 90s, and I kept not taking their calls.
Really? Why?
I wanted to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
You just didn't see any significance?
No. There was no building. There was no nothing. So finally, ABC or whoever owned the station at the time, no, it was probably whoever. There was four or five different owners.
Yeah.
And they pushed me up against the wall and says, they need an interview, they need you talking, they need pictures, they need history. I said, okay. So,
have you been there and seen?
Yes, I have. I did my show there once or twice.
And what was that like, though, to see yourself in the Rock and Roll?
It was strange. But no, it was no big deal. It's just it's a radio exhibit.
Right.
Rock and roll jocks from around the country that made a difference in their different cities are in there.
It's got to make you feel good, though, that you're acknowledged like that, because very few rock and roll DJs are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
It didn't hurt that the curator of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum was from Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And over the period of time, I had been really nice to him. I didn't know who he was or what. I got him in the studio. He gave me tapes and stuff from England, and anyway, so it was like awesome.
It's one of the things when I remember Detroit was like in the vying for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I still think it should have been in Detroit.
Yeah, the guy that came up with the phrase "rock and roll" is why they got it.
Yeah, in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So, Art, when you look back on RIF, to you, what do you think it is that made RIF so special in this town?
I think continuity. The fact that we didn't go away, we didn't threaten to go away. Music didn't change all that much, although it got a little more metal over the years. Mm-hmm. But I took my liberties with that too. I brought the 60s and 70s back to life after 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
against their will, but still, the people loved it.
They did. So after being retired for 10 years, when you look back and almost 40 years on the RIF, what do you suppose stands out?
I went to Bob Seger last Friday, and the fact that I got so much acknowledgement and appreciation throughout the crowd and afterwards, and I was in Bob's dressing room before the show, and we've been longtime friends, so we lots of hugging and kissing and smiling and pictures taken, and in the middle of the show, he gave me a shout-out. This is from my good friend, Arthur Penhallow, and hit Traveling Man. And somebody was bending my ear at the time, and I didn't hear it.
Well, I mean, you're hardly forgotten. You've got 2 Facebook accounts of 5,000.
Yeah, but I'm invisible
on each one. Well, you're not invisible on Facebook.
Well, not on Facebook, but I thought, Facebook is starting to irritate me a little bit.
But it is a great way to stay in contact with people.
Yeah, they like it.
Hey, do you remember the first time you yelled, "It's the weekend"?
Boy, I don't know. That was just something I did.
Yeah.
That just came naturally. Another baby into the It's the Weekend thing.
Right.
And I don't know. I just did it. Weekend Warriors, it was perfect.
That was a ritual for people.
Got asked to do it. I find out I got asked to do it. And, it's Friday. It's the weekend. Say it.
Right. But it literally kicked in the weekend.
Yeah. I recorded it to put on Facebook, but it ain't the same. As they all told me.
Right.
But it's still there available for anybody to listen to.
Did you always go into Weekend Warriors by Ted Nugent?
Yeah.
Always.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They wanted to be working for the Weekend. I said, that's schmaltzy pop.
The lover boy. I don't think so.
No, not doing that.
Yeah.
And Ted at least had a little thing to him,
Right.
Love him or hate him.
Art, you are definitely a part of Detroit Rock City. I mean, it wouldn't be the same without you. How do you want to be remembered?
I don't know, that I was a good person. That's all. I'm a good guy. I love God. Jesus is always on my mind. I'm a good person.
I know you are.
I can say that about myself. You can say whatever you want about me, but I know for a fact that I'm a good guy.
Well, and the people that know that you have a big heart. You always have.
A lot of love for a lot of people.
A lot of love for a lot of people. You're
making me blush.
Well, you're always looking for love. You were never looking for trouble, man.
Well,
except maybe management.
Not that kind of trouble. Well, management was part of my shtick, and they got it in the beginning, but the new management, prior to me leaving, they didn't get it.
Right.
They didn't want to be on the chopping block. I said, it's an honor to be on the chopping block, because all these people out there listening that are losing their jobs are getting fucked over by their bosses. They love it when you start fucking with management. They just makes their day so much better. And the guy just did not understand that.
Do you think that there's a little animosity there that led to the fact that the contract couldn't come together?
I have no idea. I think the guy was trying to move money around and make him look more profitable with 3 stations he was manipulating. And by taking my money away, made him look better.
You were surprised when that happened, I know.
I was shocked. Yeah. He said, he was telling me, he said, well, they're letting go everybody around the country that are heritage DJs. I said, I'm a heritage DJ, but I still have the #1 fucking ratings in 25 to 54 adults, not men, women and men. So why are you doing this to me? Chopping my pay by, 65%? I said, you know what? I think I can make that in retirement. And maybe you'll get the picture and call me up and tell me to come back. I always hoped that they would, but nah.
Yeah, and it was a principle thing at that point.
Yeah, I was stubborn, as you know.
Yes. Do you ever regret that or no?
I always say, I had a motto, when it ceases to be fun, I'm done. 2 days before my 65th birthday, it ceased to be fun. So I always hoped they'd come back with a 50% offer.
Sure.
That was agreeable to me. But they didn't.
This didn't happen.
Yeah. It's not a sob story, and it's no hard feelings.
Right.
That was it.
Yep.
The end.
The end.
And the new beginning.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And you're still kicking and you're healthy.
Hopefully.
You're happy.
Yeah, well, I could be happier.
Yeah.
You're the happiest person I know. And you got a lot going on in your life.
Well, you got to make a choice to be happy.
I should be happier.
And you golf much out here?
I played golf one day. I'm such in poor shape.
Well, you look good. Your exercise equipment's in there, so I know you're working out a little bit.
I got my dumbbells and I got my treadmill. And
I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this.
My pleasure. And
I love you like a brother.
Good Lord bless you forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, you too, my friend.
God bless WRIF.
Baby.
Baby.
Next time.
Ladies and gentlemen, the staff and management have assembled here in the hallways of WRIF, all looking down As you may know, Arthur refuses to make eye contact with the working bees.
Ken Calvert.
This time, the nearly nude Samoan manservants will slowly work their way out to the 1963 Econoline van, which says on the back, if I'm reading it correctly, "Don't laugh, your daughter may be inside." And on the other side, it says, if this van's a rockin', do not come a knockin'.
It was just consummate theater of the mind, which is what was so cool about radio. Now, how much prep did you put into this stuff, Ken? Or was it just kind of like...
I started on Thursday nights to write up things like, this man was once seen wearing aluminum clown shoes to a miniskirt contest. And then we'd go into Jeff's Boogie, the great Jeff Beck instrumental, Yardbirds instrumental, and then we were just off and rocking. And I remember one time just taking the Bob Lowe boat horn, that brrrr, and we came up with Rock and Roll Overtime.
Yeah.
And it made more sense for his show. I just remember it made more sense for his show.
The History of WRIF podcast is brought to you by the Specs Howard School of Media Arts.